Alright, let's get started pulling this engine. So last video we found out it's starting to knock under load, under RPM. So let's pull it now before we really hurt it, and that way it is easily rebuildable and it's going to cost less before we blow a hole in it or something. So let's drop the engine out. Now on the Camaros, these 4th Gen F bodies, you lift the body off of the cradle. So we're going to leave the front suspension, the K-member, and the engine with it and lift the body up on off of it. I picked up an engine hoist, a 2-ton engine hoist. Let's get this done. I've already disconnected the battery, and another goal of this is AC works, so we're going to try to keep the AC system closed and not have to evacuate the freon at all. It should be possible in theory, but I guess we're going to find out. So it's kind of raining right now. I'm going to start underneath the car. I'm going to start draining some fluids. I've drained 3 fluids: the oil, the transmission fluid, and the coolant, the radiator. Took the lower hose off. We'll take the upper one off too. I think we're going to pull the radiator out completely because we want to make sure we don't have anything blocking the condenser. So we'll figure it out. But staying below the car, I'm going to work on removing the drive shaft. And now you don't need to remove the transmission fluid or drain it. I'm going to do it so I don't make that big of a mess. Plus my fluid is brand new, so I put it into a container so I can reuse it. So I've removed the drive shaft. I've also removed the cross brace here, the torque arm, removed it from the transmission side so it's just hanging up out of the way. Got the front exhaust off, so we're completely clear in the front. Just got to remove these 4 transmission mounts to this, or the 4 bolts to the transmission mount. They say you can leave the middle one on, and I believe it because there's nothing in the way, so I think I will. That will just help support on the dolly later on. But so remove those 4 bolts. Leaking a tiny bit of trans fluid, but it's okay. I removed the shifter area up top. By now everything underneath is done besides unbolting the front K-member. So let's start with everything we see in the front. We're gonna have to take off the air intake stuff, and I know we're gonna have to undo the shock bolts. We might save that for last, we'll see. But let's start taking apart the air cleaner assembly and just go from there. Intake removed. Now I think you can pull without removing the radiator just looking at it, but I think I see why people do it. This is a popular spot to lift from with the hoist, the rad support here. The other spot would be the front crash bar. If you remove the bumper, that's probably the best spot. Or if you have chains, you can do down here on both sides, but I think we're going to go with that spot, which means we got to remove this to get access to put our chain. Got the radiator out. I unplugged all the wiring to the radiator to the 2 fans. So set it aside. It came out. There's no bolts, it's just plastic that the condenser clips into. So I pulled the radiator out with the fans as the whole unit. We have the condenser here. A little damage here, but it's fine. So my plan now is to make sure that we can in fact get this AC out without having to evacuate the system. AC compressor is down there on the bottom. That means in order to get it out and keep all the lines connected, we're going to need to disconnect the AC compressor from the engine, and then we're going to need to hang it somewhere. That way the lines aren't stressed. So I think that's going to be my next plan, because after that, it's just wiring. All the wiring that goes into the firewall needs to be undone, and fuel rails. And it's really not that much more, and then we're ready to lift this off. Got the AC compressor off, left the bracket with the idler here, and then ratchet strapped it so it's gonna stay out of the way. I need to tighten it, but it's a little awkward right now, but it's out of the way. We're fine. Now let's start removing some wiring. I want to tackle that before I do anything else. So I know we got to move the PCM, and there's some wiring that goes into the passenger firewall side, so let's get all that off and thrown on top of the engine. PCM removed. Now I'm just starting to remove some wires, so all 3 harnesses here, or 4 actually, removed. There's a clip here, clip back there. There's a couple clips along the firewall that we gotta pull out. I do see a vacuum line coming out into here for the HVAC, or actually the bottom one. Top one too, I'm not sure if the top one is gonna stay with the car or not, but vacuum line down there, that's the HVAC. So we're gonna have to disconnect the vacuum source right here. Working on removing the fuel lines. So it's just these two. One of these was feed, one's return. Not really sure which one's which. And then we have our evap one. So evap, easy, just pull off, good to go. These ones I believe are a quick disconnect style connector. So I picked up a cheap set of these and we'll see if these work or not. Otherwise we'll do the 2 screwdriver method. The 3/8 one worked. Now this one, whichever one this is, I've got to figure out the size and then pop it off. Alright, day 2. Let's get this wrapped up. So now we have most of the wiring. There's still some grounds here and there. Let's do the brake lines. So we have to remove the front brake lines as the rear ones are apparently okay. So the front ones, it says here on the ABS module RF and LF. So that's how we know which ones are front, and then LR, RR. So let's remove these front ones from the module here, and then they go down, and there's a heat shield along the driver's side here. We're gonna have to remove that and then unclip the brake lines from the side of the frame here. As you see, I took out the entire heat shield piece just because I saw that's what forums were saying to do, but really I don't think I had to do that at all. So taking a look, this would be the left front brake hose that I took off, and then I also had to remove the one in the back here. I thought this one, but this one attaches to our master cylinder, so that it's not going to get in the way. We need to drop what's on the front cradle area. So found the right hose. It was the one back here and the one up here, and now they're disconnected completely, and at this point we should have nothing attached. We should be good to go. There was a ground here, a ground here, another one down somewhere. Oh, this one, but we don't need to remove this because I don't think this goes with the engine. I think this stays. Oh, on the driver's side I removed the wheel speed sensor. We're gonna have to unplug it on this side too. If you could see right in there, there's the sensor. We're gonna unplug it and then make sure it's not clipped to the subframe anymore. Okay, so yeah, that last thing to do, and then let's remove this. We are finally at the point where everything, I believe, is disconnected, so we're starting to lower the subframe. I already removed all 8 bolts and 4 bolts for the sway bar, 2 on each side. Now I got my jack under there. I got 2 dollies on each side, wheels off, because I'm gonna put the back end up on top of those wheels. But first, let's lower this down onto the dollies before we start worrying about lifting the car up. So right now, I have the weight of the front end being held up by the jack. I'm gonna loosen the rest of the Camaro bolts. I just had them, like, just a couple threads on just to catch it so it doesn't fall. I'm gonna pull them out now and slowly lower everything down. Gotta lower the transmission. So as you see, the engine has lowered. We're below the shock towers. Time to just keep bringing it on out. We're almost to the dollies. We got the engine hoist hooked up. Got this strap. I just looped it around to hopefully not bend this too bad. It's probably going to get bent a little, but it's okay. Now we're going to pull up. As you see, engine is completely free, nothing in the way. Looks like we did good and got everything off and out of the way. So let's just keep lowering it down. So I have the rear tires up on top of the front tires. That was a challenge to get up there that high, but we're good there. Now there's enough room in the back to lift it up and over. Now I'm just going to lift the front of the car up, and we want to get it high enough to where I can put my big 6-ton jack stands under it and support the front of the car, enough to where I can remove the hoist. So we just got to keep going until we have completely cleared everything that we're working with. So if you look at the shock tower here, we have to get the front of the car up above this so we can roll it out. And then I got my jack stand here. And I'm just going to continually lift it up like that until we are up and high enough. The rest of the engine is, oh, not quite. We got this in the way. I think we're going to have to remove this. Yeah, I think we're going to have to remove that, but I'll do that once it's on the jack stand, once it's safe to go under there. So I think the shock towers are good. We can just pull them that way. Okay, so you're going to be on that side, and what we're going to do is pull these. We're going to try and get them this way to clear that, and then we're going to try to move everything forward. Great. Okay. Oh, I need to go more. There we go. Now I'm going to put the jack stand back. Got the engine out. As you see, I just have it sitting on my small jack stands on the lowest setting, and it's going to stay like this until we are ready to put the new engine in. So coming over into the garage, my wife and I rolled the whole assembly here into the garage, and we even got the engine hoist to fit in here. And here we go. Now if we remove the transmission, I could get some more room. We are pretty crammed and out of space right now, but you know, this is temporary. Now my plan with this engine is to eventually rebuild it. However, I have a track day coming up in about 2 months, and because I've never rebuilt an engine, I don't want my first engine rebuild to be going out on the track, because that could be expensive if it goes wrong. So what I'm going to do instead is find a 3800 locally, the used one, and just swap it in here, and that should get me through the rest of the year. And then next year, by then, hopefully we have this fully rebuilt, or we can start rebuilding it and have it ready for 2025. That's the plan. We'll see how it goes. Next step, since I got the engine and the whole cradle assembly out now, is find a 3800. Most likely it's going to be a front wheel drive one, but that's okay. We can swap it. We can make the swap and get everything working. But overall, I'm really impressed that I didn't forget anything. I got all the wires that I was supposed to, and we're good to go. And if you saw, while we were pulling the whole cradle assembly out with the car lifted up, we ended up having to go to the side, out the driver's side. And that's because my driveway is on the ever so slight downhill in the front. And because of that, I maxed out my 6-ton jack stands, and that wasn't enough lift to pull everything out front. So as you saw, we lifted it up. I had a jack stand in the center to support it just in case, as safety, and then went out the side and never once went under the car. And overall, we got it out. and that's going to be how we get it back in. So there you have it. We pulled the engine, first time pulling an engine, and glad to say the removal went smooth. We'll see how the install goes. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.